What if I told you that Boa Hancock, the Pirate Empress, is an awakened paramecia? So, as you know, awakenings can kind of run the gambit of being just about anything. We have very similar awakenings in both Doflamingo and Katakuri, which we got a video about that coming up very soon. But then we've got sort of weird ones like Laws of Devil Fruit Awakening and Kids Devil Fruit Awakening. I've done a video about Laws Devil Fruit Awakening being very similar to what I think Whitebeard's Devil Fruit Awakening may be. And speaking about Whitebeard, let's go to Marineford. You see, when Boa Hancock uses the powers of her Love Fruit, rules kind of go like this. If a person finds Boa Hancock attractive, they are susceptible to being turned to stone via her Love beam or Marrow beam, which is a heart-shaped beam that she uses by folding her hands in a way that they look like a heart. A flash of pink hearts in the forms of light come out of her hands and the target is turned to stone. And she has a bunch of other techniques that kind of do the same thing. The odd one out is Pistol Kiss, which is a weird projection that she can do by kissing her index finger, pointing it at a target like a gun and firing. And it's said that in order to do damage, she imbues this sort of kiss projection with armament hockey, because she does this on Luffy when he arrives at Amazon Lily, and it seems to have a physical effect, which is kind of weird, but that's beside the point. Usually how one evades Boa Hancock's petrification is if they are blind or they overcome their feelings of lust for her or admiration or whatever property that is proccing susceptibility to the Love Fruit is with pain. And we see this when she first appears on a marine ship and Vice Admiral Momonga stabs his hand in order to evade being petrified by the effects of the Love Fruit. So with that being said, here's the interesting thing. Going back to Marineford, we see Boa Hancock kind of break these rules, because in chapter 560, in chapter 555, and in chapter 569, we have instances in which Boa Hancock actually turns an object into stone. This is completely abnormal for her, because so far the Devil Fruit rules have only stated that she can only affect living beings with her fruit, because only living beings feel lust. This is where I think the awakening starts to come in. The method is an attack called Perfume Fruitu. Excuse my pronunciation, but it literally translates to aromatic leg, right? What happens when she does this is that she actually petrifies Smoker's Juti, which a common misconception about Smoker's Jute is that it's completely sea stone, but that's not true. It's mostly steel and just the tip is made out of sea stone. That's why he always stabs Luffy with the tip, because that's the effective part of the weapon. So she breaks his Jute in two by petrifying it with the same attack. Then she attacks a Pacifista, cracking its head by turning it into stone. And mind you, Pacifistas are just automatons. They are just robots. We don't know if they're cyborgs, but they are non-thinking, non-feeling automatons. They can't feel lust. So her being even able to petrify one of them is interesting. And then the last example is that she randomly petrifies a pirate that's on the side of Whitebeard. But in petrifying him, she also petrifies the blade that he is holding and breaks through it along with part of his head. So with all of that being said, this is very interesting. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this would be an awakening quite similar to Kid's awakening, in which he can make things that aren't magnetic. And he does this in Wano against Big Mom. So it's applying by the same rules, more or less. Now, a counter argument one might bring up is that didn't S-Snake do the same thing? If you don't know, S-Snake is a clone of Boa Hancock with the same abilities, thanks to her providing her lineage factor. We know that each of the original 7 warlords that we see at the start of the story have been cloned and made into a Pacifista class called a Seraphim. And these Seraphims, like I mentioned, are clones of the original 7 warlords mixed with Lunarian DNA. And they have the ability to shoot pacifista lasers out of their hands. Don't know if they have the pyrokinesis that King had way back in the King versus Zoro fight, but yeah, that remains to be seen. We know they have the defensive capabilities when their fire is on, and they have the black wings, the dark skin, the white hair, etc., etc. So S-Snake has the ability of the Mero fruit. Now you might be thinking, well, didn't S-Snake perform a very similar technique, the aromatic leg, the perfume furu? Yes, she did. However, the interesting part and the difference between her performing it and the original Boa Hancock performing it is that Boa Hancock doesn't need someone in being attracted to her in order to do it. She just does it, and whatever she makes contact with is petrified. With S-Snake, here's the difference. Number one, she didn't petrify an object. And number two, she was put in a situation in which Frankie felt guilty for hurting her. Because the very interesting thing about the love fruit in general that we find out through S-Snake is that the love fruit's effects aren't solely connected to lust. They are connected to any sort of positive emotion that is tied to the physical being of the user. So in this situation, S-Snake uses her cuteness to her advantage. And in that cuteness, people are enamored by how cute she is or feel bad for her when they are in a position of power to hurt her. The latter is what she used as a weapon against Frankie, because she was in pain after being crushed by this sea stone bubble, which then made Frankie hesitate as she's like actually drumming up fake tears to make him feel guilty. Frankie hesitates. She performs perfume furu, and that had the petrification effect on him. You see, the effect of the fruit was procced beforehand before she used the attack. Boa Hancock does not need to do this. She has done it on automatons who have no feelings toward her. She has done it on weapons, and she has done it in the process of petrifying someone who is holding a weapon, and those effects extended to the weapon. So with that being said, I'm going to say that her use of the technique is enhanced by the awakening, because now we have an example of the technique needing the extra step in order to work by a user who presumably isn't as adept at using the Devil Fruit as Boa Hancock is. Another just interesting thing is that we don't know if S-Snake can actually undo the petrification that, say, Boa would set up, because technically we find out a little more about how the love fruit works during Blackbeard's raid of Amazon Lily, which is also the first appearance of S-Snake. We find out that the love fruit is very much user tagged, in which only the user who has petrified someone can awaken them from that petrification. However, seeing as how S-Snake is a clone of Boa right down to the T, because we also find out, which was correctly predicted by me, that she also has admiration for Luffy, because Luffy is unfazed by lust or cuteness. He's a very straightforward type of person. So seeing as how those feelings are transferred into S-Snake, one can only assume that the only person in the world that presumably can undo either S-Snake or Boa Hancock's petrification is one another. They can undo each other's petrification. But another interesting thought experiment would be, could one petrify the other? Because they're both of the same quality of beauty in their respective arenas. S-Snake is very cute, whereas Boa Hancock is very beautiful. So S-Snake could have admiration for Hancock as a older, mature woman, which I assume is the same admiration that the citizens of Amazon Lily have towards Boa Hancock. Or Boa Hancock could see S-Snake as a cute little girl and reminds her of herself, which could then make Hancock susceptible to her own love beam in a sense. So with that, that's all I have for you today. Give me your thoughts though.